What's up, homies? Welcome back to another episode of the Invincible podcast. We are so excited to be here. We're going to be talking about Perfect Strangers, Volume 3 of the Invincible podcast. But before we get into that, I want to let you guys know that we are loving all the comments from the last two videos from the first two volumes. If you have not seen those, we are going through every volume of Invincible. It usually makes up about 4 issues of the comic book. So if you have not watched the other two videos, highly recommend going down in the description or hitting the card up in the right-hand corner. You can watch the first 2 episodes, get the comic books. We have the links for the compendiums, for the volumes, for the hardcovers, for the paperbacks, all listed down in the description so you can have access to all those things. I've never read this comic book, so my uncultured swine ass is getting educated. And second of all, we're doing
and
this.
You learned today, baby. You learned today.
You gonna learn today.
I'll learn some stuff. On top of that, we're kind of doing this in anticipation of the 2021 Amazon animated series that will be coming out. So we thought, well, this is a perfect opportunity to now jump into this comic book. You know, I know that these guys have had love for this comic book for a while, and they've tried so hard to get me in on this thing. And now, finally, perfect opportunity to do it. And I've loved the first 2 volumes. It's so strong.
I just want to jump in. And say, you know, like Adam was saying, we have loved the discussion from people reading along, especially people reading for the first time as well, whether it's in the YouTube comments for our videos or on our Discord, which has been fantastic. And I want to say, stronger than anything I've ever said, if you are watching this video right now and you have not read up to this volume of Invincible, you have to stop because these spoilers are make or break. And I cannot freaking wait to hear what Adam is about to say about how he felt about this volume in particular. Go, Adam.
So I went through an emotional roller coaster reading this comic book. It started with excitement. It moved into interest and sort of like questions, and then it ended on like heartbreak and equal heartbreak and joy and like relief, but also a lot of frustration because I hate Omni-Man right now, but I feel like there will be a moment where like hopefully there'll be something redeeming, or I'm just gonna hate him till the end. I feel for Mark's mother so much right now because she's been dealt the worst hand. Everything has been kind of just like laid out to her, and I can't even imagine one day being told that the person that you have been with, who you fathered or carried their child, does not love you and you mean nothing to him. It's so heartbreaking to me.
If we're going to skip to that, I love that moment because I think it's a great exchange between Cecil Stedman, who is effectively the Nick Fury of this world. And he's like, we released the audio that we recorded because it's two-way, right? We're in Omni-Man's ear, but also we could hear what he was saying and he could hear what we were saying. We recorded it and we just let your mom hear it. And Mark at first is like, "Are you crazy? I don't want to hear that. It's devastating." And he goes, "This is the best way to do it, kid. Like,
rip the Band-Aid off."
If it was somebody like you telling her, and the events were a little bit different, and there was a different explanation other than just the flat-out truth for what he said and did, then she would have hope. Then she would go home and have hope that Nolan Grayson could come back and like
one day.
And everything he explains to Mark really quickly, Mark's like, "Yeah, I suppose you're right." Like, it's just the most brutal Band-Aid rip. And then she's walking up the stairs at the end, and he's like, "Mom, are you okay?" And she's like, "Not even remotely close." You know,
this poor woman.
Yeah. And the series will spend time with her, and we'll get to see her sort of dealing with it. I think in a lot of ways even more so than Invincible, because Invincible is this lead character who has to go on adventures after, like he has to be the superhero character, but Debbie's going to be the one that's kind of mourning this.
Yeah.
So
because she has no option to. She doesn't have superpowers. She can't jump into space and go punch some Viltrumites. You know, like she can't do any of that. So she has to sit there and sulk in the idea that her husband is a world-conquering
piece of shit.
Alien.
Son of a piece of shit.
So let's talk about the events that build up to this. Then. So in issue 9. I'll just talk about the important moments. So it had us looking at Omni-Man, and he's very confused about what to do. He wants to talk to Mark about something. In this issue as well, we also have Robot becomes the leader of the Guardians of the Globe, who has been assigned by the Pentagon themselves to be like, "Hey guys, assemble a new team.
We're stepping in."
Right. So Robot Man holds Guardians of the Globe's tryouts, which is great, and we enter an old character, but some new characters. We have Donald, who is Cecil Stedman's kind of right-hand man. We also have Duplicate, who's a new member of the Guardian of the Globe, Shrinking Ray, Monster Girl, Black Samson, and Rexplode officially joins the Guardians of the Globe.
Two things that I love. Black Samson finally actually like getting his due and becoming a character in this comic book, like a full-fledged character. And then Monster Girl. Their version of the Incredible Hulk, pretty much.
Dude,
and
she's good.
The way that Rex is like, oh, are you supposed to be here? You don't look like you should be here. And she's like, you wouldn't like me when I'm angry, and just unleashes fury. And it's like, you asked for it. And I'm like, this is great. This is great because, like, you know, as you're reading the book, you're like, she's going to turn into something that's going to be horrendously terrifying. And you just like don't know to what extent. But I love that moment because I think again, it just like gives you perspective from all these different characters and it builds out these moments. And I love at the end how she's like, I might have gone a little bit overboard. And I'm like, I love this. You're like a little kid. And the fact that you're like this aware, I'm like, I love moments like this. And even Mark telling Rex like, hey man, just because I helped you doesn't mean that I actually like you. Like I still have beef with you. And I'm like, cool. We're still letting these threads sort of like play out throughout the books.
I also like that after she beats Rex's ass, she asks for a cigarette.
That's right.
Awesome.
Yo, you're like 10. I don't know.
You look like you're 12. Okay, cool. But the most important thing out of this issue is the end of this issue where we see the Mauler twins rearranging the Immortal, and then he wakes up out of his kind of like coma, whatever he's in, screaming, and then he flies off, pissed off. This is my first inkling of like, oh, why is he so angry?
Right.
What's going on here, you guys?
The other big moment was Adam Eve. She's going through something, and she goes to Mark Console, and she sees him in the bedroom with Amber, and having an intimate moment. Man, that's like one of the most heartbreaking things that you can experience in life is thinking that there is someone there for you because you've consoled them before, and then realizing like, oh, this person is like doing their own thing, living their own life. Like, who do I have now? Who can I turn to?
Also, this issue starts off with a Star Trek reference.
Bro,
Hector,
that's what I was waiting for, baby.
How geeking out were you?
Here's what I love. I remember this moment, this great Star Trek The Next Generation parody of this group of beings that are basically all humanoid but with different color skin. And they even have like a Data type character, but his name is Download. You know, all of these great little analogs. And then Alan the alien comes and saves them. After they were about to do some smart, like, you know, human sort of problem solving science-wise, but then it reminds you, no, this is not this kind of universe. In this universe, there are beings like Alan that can fly around space. So he saves them. The fun thing is I remember this moment. First time I read it 15 years ago, and I knew what it was doing because I was obviously everybody's aware of Star Trek, everybody's aware of Patrick Stewart, but it wasn't until 2009, the J.J. Abrams movie Star Trek, that I got into Star Trek for real. I watched the original series, and then eventually got through all 7 seasons of The Next Generation, and really got to like love those characters and what people appreciated about them. So this is the first time I've reread this since I've actually been full on into Star Trek. So that was even more fun. That I'm reading this and I'm like, oh, this is great. This is great.
One more thing we need to point out about this issue, Adam, that's going to be a through line for the rest of the series, basically, is the Mauler twins. It's the first time we see them talk about who's a clone and who's not.
Right, which I thought was very, very interesting because when we saw them in the previous issues, we didn't get any of that sort of context. So I'm like, this is very interesting to meet these two characters who are like, neither of them, from like what we can tell just from this last page, neither of them have any clue of like who's the original and who's the clone. And I'm like, this is kind of fascinating to me to see how this relationship is going to work, and also how obviously their story ties into the greater story of what's happening.
But it's indicative of what Robert Kirkman does. He'll introduce a little side character, a little side thing, and then revisit them later and then give you more context. So there is so many examples of that. There's also a bunch of throwaway characters. Like, I think I'll give you a spoiler. The elephant, who's that rhino knockoff. I don't know if we'll ever see him again, and if we do, he's just like a one and done.
I mean, he does show up in one of these issues, like in the background in the prison cell.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So, but some of the characters you will get more sort of an in-depth writing and characterization for them when they're revisited, and it's super fun in that regard. Next issue is fun. It opens with
Doc Seismic.
Doc Seismic, again, another just a great name and a cool little moment with Mount Rushmore. Invincible's coming into his own, where people are like, "Thanks, Invincible," and he's like, "This is nice." Then it cuts to the whole great sequence, very meta, of Mark at the comic book store. So we have some fun with that, but that's all just to sort of distract and lead up to Mark seeing on TV, the same as his mom, Debbie, at home, the fight between Omni-Man and the Immortal. Because it's just so shocking, because Debbie knows who those two men are. Mark knows who those two men are. Like the
At
news
least
is
she
like,
thinks she knows who
right.
Omni-Man is.
The fact that we go back to Debbie as she's seeing it on the news, I think adds so much weight when you know what it's leading up to. And then Mark shows up, and Omni-Man kills Immortal.
No, hold on.
doesn't just
You
kill
can't
him.
undersell that like that, Hector.
Bro.
Because when I saw the fist go through the stomach, and then the next panel, he literally rips this man in half, and blood just gushes everywhere. I was like, holy shit balls.
This was our first real gory glimpse of what's to come.
Yeah.
Because it's this and more.
And then he goes, "Son, we have to talk." What was going through your head at this point, Adam?
Yeah.
What was going through when
Jesus.
I
mean,
he's dripping in blood.
I mean,
They drew it on purpose. He's dripping in blood, and he's like, this is all justified. Listen to me.
and it's so crazy too because you look at the parallel between the first time we see Omni-Man in this volume where he's kind of like up at the top of the mountain, he's like reciting in his head of like how to go about this, and then it's like, yeah, man, there's no going back. Your son just saw you brutally murder somebody. There's no room now. You have to just like spit it out. But the way, like the moment of seeing him like rip that body, the Immortal, in half, and Mark flying up to him and just complete terror and horror, staring, like watching witness this happen, and then him turning to him and saying, "We have to talk." I'm like, where do you go? Where do you go?
Yeah.
How do you lightly layer this into the conversation of like, I just murdered someone, but we need to talk. I'm like, this is insane. But I think it also, like, there's a great moment with Debbie and Omni-Man earlier where, he gets beeped, he gets paged basically, and he has to go on a mission, and she says like, "I love you," and he takes the pause to say, "I love you back."
Now you see it.
And it was that moment that I was like,
Boy.
It was that moment more so than any other moment, even like this, being how it escalated as much as it is. The fact that he took such a pause to say, "I love you back," was like, we're about to find out why the hesitation, and it's going to be heartbreaking to her.
She's about to go through some shit, and it goes back to that pause that he took when after Mark came down after talking to Alan the alien. He was like, he paused after he realized that they just had a conversation, and he's like, "Oh, okay, cool." Yeah, you're absolutely right, Adam. And this scene is the precursor to what's to come. We also had a new character in this issue called Damien Darkblood, who's the demon detective. So that guy was pretty cool.
It was nice to finally like get a name to the character.
Exactly. He showed up before
At the funeral,
and this is when Robert Kirkman named him. He shows up at the Guardians of the Globe headquarters, and I believe the two characters that were in there was a guy with an eye patch and a woman with a robot arm, were these like detectives. I believe that was also a reference to the Brian Michael Bendis series Powers. I think it's Kirkman trying to, the same way we saw the character of Savage Dragon at the funeral, like he loves certain indie comics and different things, and later you'll see he loves Spider-Man as well because we get to see Invincible interact with him. But like, I think there's just kind of a little bit of a comic book love fest that was happening. This next issue, you guys, I want to point this out because I want to make sure, I feel that we all know this and knew it the first time we read it, but I want to emphasize Ryan Ottley at this point is the new artist on the series.
Right.
And at the end of this book, Robert Kirkman talks about how he goes, I don't love to do this, but I did ask Ryan to basically copy the art that Cory Walker did the first time Nolan Omni-Man was explaining his backstory. Because this time now he's explaining and he's like, here's the real truth.
Right.
And it's like the same pose where he's like, where Nolan's like, son, I need to talk to you. And this is where I come from. Certain panels were recreated, except now there's different twists and different things. And there's splash pages where the Viltrumites are just destroying civilizations and killing millions and billions of beings. So did you get that? Did you feel that? Did you know like this, that this is copying what I knew before, except now that's not what was actually the reality and this is the reality?
I mean, I think the thing that is impressive is like, I knew that Ryan Ottley at some, we talked about how Ryan Ottley took over. I would say that the transition was so seamless that I never would have questioned that it's a different artist doing the artwork. Yeah. But I do love the fact that looking at all of these panels and they are very much similar or in some cases exactly the same with a twist of like, yes, we did do these things, but we also murdered and decimated civilizations or half of civilizations. I don't necessarily want to know more about the civilization, but I want to know how the civilization comes into play now that we are in this sort of holy crap situation where everything has been revealed.
Did you see Alan the alien race? Like they're all running from and then later in the book, Alan says like, yeah, my people are nomads now because we tried to rise up.
Yeah.
Which is like, what? It adds a whole nother.
This is that's what excites me about a character like Alan the alien, because the way he's introduced, you kind of think like, oh, he's a one and done. But knowing, one, Seth Rogen is going to voice him. Two, you have literally one panel of his civilization. You see their homeworld being destroyed. I'm like, man, this guy's coming back for some vengeance and fury. I don't doubt it.
I think issue 11 is one of the key issues to read, and it's obviously the unmissable issue because this is where we get the explanation of what exactly has been happening and how Omni-Man decided to do the Superman thing and live as a human,
and it sucks. Kind of assimilate. It sucks too because we have a very heartfelt callback to how he meets Debbie, how he meets Mark Grayson's mother, and how he discovers he just want to integrate himself, and he discovered sex, and he was like, oh, people do this for pleasure, great, and you're like, great, you like have
kind of explains how he was such a horn dog.
And it's like, and it's like you see how he meets the Guardians of the Globe and all these things, and he starts realizing like, okay, this is the ultimate higher power. If I'm going to fulfill the whole reason why I came to Earth, I need to start putting those actions into play, getting all of the backstory, and you're kind of experiencing this with Mark at the same time, because once the backstory, him telling him all the backstory kind of concludes, Mark is in denial, and obviously, of course, he's in denial because how could he and why would he want to believe everything that he's hearing? But I think like for me, the moment that, when Omni-Man's telling him like, Mark, you got to calm down. He's like, don't tell me to calm down. And then it gets to that pivotal point where shit is about to go down. When he says, I know exactly what I'm saying. And Omni-Man just says, so be it. And I was like, here we go, baby. It's gonna get spicy. It's gonna get crazy. And it did.
Yeah, so that's the perfect precursor to get to issue 12 then. So issue 12 is the lifeblood of this storyline. Like
it was full Man of Steel in this issue.
Oh my God. It was so brutal. Like watching not just the imagery of watching Omni-Man beat his son, but also the act of it, like the complete betrayal. Like I felt those punches emotionally, and it's so crazy to say that we're only 12 issues into a series.
That to me is
already this connected to these characters.
That to me is the craziest part about it, was like turning that page and seeing so be it, and like the level of betrayal. It's exactly what you said. It's like being punched in the mouth so hard. This is heart-wrenching comic book shit.
I love the torture you're going through right now. You also mentioned Man of Steel. We have to talk about Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Because this comic book came out in like 2003, 2004, somewhere in there. I think you brought it up because Man of Steel also dealt with similarly powered characters having a big fight in the city. The difference, I think, which is very important, is that Nolan knows what he's doing, and he's pointing it out to Mark to try to prove a point to him.
Right.
And I think that Mark says, these are my people. I was born and raised here. This is my world. I'm going to fight you. I'm not going to let you take over. Nolan was using the fact that he can punch him through a building into the subway. And we see that image where like the subway train is hit and all these people are just coming out like ragdoll bodies. People are just dying. And Nolan is saying, I can hit you and thousands of these lives are lost. They don't mean anything to us. Everything that you love and care about, he's using it as this example, and it just adds to that punch to the mouth.
And he very clearly tells him, he's like, you're gonna outlive all of these people. These people are not gonna matter in the grand scheme, because you will live. The older we get, the slower we age. They don't matter. But it Adam, doesn't matter. The conquest is what matters. And I'm like, oh,
what would he be left with, Adam? What would he be left with? Come on,
you, Dad. I still have you, Dad. I was
iconic. Oh my God.
It's
this is
brutal.
The issue that.
How is this 12 issue? What happens for the other 80 something issues?
Hey man,
you don't even know.
You don't even know, Adam. Shit gets crazy. Yeah. It gets real crazy.
But man, it's really good.
Yeah. What really I'm in awe of is just how much attachment we got to these characters in such short of time. So effective storytelling doesn't necessarily have to be super duper long and super, all this exposition.
That's why I'm like, how is this 100 something issues?
Yeah. It's done so efficiently and so quickly and so intelligently. he's dropped so much for us in 12 issues that we've already spent like 3+ hours talking about it. And now we're at this point where I can't stop reading. And it's going to be a crazy ride. And if you're a new reader, just like you, Adam, I hope you realize that this is going to continue. Like all of these good things that we're seeing so far are only going to get better. Like it doesn't stop.
I honestly, so we're going to talk about the final issue in this volume. I thought that was the end, and I flipped the page and it was like chapter 5, and I was like, why?
I can't do this.
Why more?
I think chapter 5 is also a real pivotal chapter in that. It's
this is the most dialogue-heavy issue as far as I can remember. But
it's a breather.
It's so necessary because Cecil gives you so much. And I think it like really puts a lot into perspective.
It caught me off guard that he was so caught off guard,
right?
By the betrayal. You
know,
like the deep cover was so deep that a person like that was
hella deep.
Off guard. Dude, it was it was meta deep. Yeah, so this whole issue is actually super duper important as well because you actually get to see the pain that Mark's mom is starting to go into, like the mourning and everything. I think it's really nice that Cecil sets her up for life.
Yeah.
And kind of explains the backstory of like, well, you know what? Your human husband is officially dead, died in a car accident.
Right.
We're going to set you up for life. We're going to set Mark up with a scholarship for the rest of his life.
She's like, why? And he goes, I feel responsible. The scene where he's talking to Debbie and Mark, and it's those info dumps. What I love about both of those scenes is that Mark and Debbie are just defeated. And Cecil, for Mark, he goes, okay, right, another time then. Like letting you know, like, okay, here's an info dump for the reader. But Mark's going through some stuff, and so is Debbie, and so on and so on.
The other very important thing that happens in this issue is Alan the alien returns, and he's kind of rushed.
A little comedic, right? Because it's that biplane panel, so we laugh and we can almost release with the comedy because oh my god, what we've just been through. And here's another quick, great info dump because Alan's like, hey, you might have a Viltrumite, and Mark goes, we need to talk. Alan is all of a sudden providing us with some information that's like, well, wait a minute, hold on. This story's not over. There's a coalition of planets.
Yeah.
There are people who are trying to fight the Viltrumite. What's going on? What's happening? And it's perfect. And he's like, I need to go check in with the coalition. I'll come back. But this is crazy. This has never happened before. A Viltrumite who had left his post, a Viltrumite who had a child, and since you're half Viltrumite, like you're going against them.
Yeah.
This has never happened against that empire. So I have to go report this. And like, what are you going to do? Finish high school, I guess. Like it's the best.
I love it. I love it. The other moment that I really did enjoy was Adam, Eve, and William. A little spice in there.
A little.
And maybe
bit.
a little
What's going on
spice.
between
You want to
these
go have a
two?
burger? And I'm like,
A little bit. That's that classic teen drama stuff.
Yeah.
It almost reminds you of almost like Mary Jane and Harry Osborn. If they had known that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, and then they would confide in each other, like, wait, this is great. And it's just kind of logical. It makes sense because William was like, I haven't seen him since that thing with his dad on the news.
You know?
I mean, and then Eve's like, so you know? And he goes, oh, thank God. Okay, I just messed up. Like, it makes sense and goes back to that kind of Smallville feel and Eve is a whole great superhero character within her own right, and she's going to be going on a journey.
Yeah.
But just to see her and William have this connection is really great. Yeah.
So a lot of times there's comic books where you read one issue or you read 3 issues, you're like, cool, I'm good for the next month. But this thing, it's like you're reading 5 issues at a time per volume, and every single time it ends, I'm like, I just want to keep going. And I don't want to get ahead. I don't want to get way ahead.
Speed reading. Oh, you can't.
I don't want to get way ahead. I got to do this.
can't now.
I got to do this damn thing every week, and I'm like, I can't read the next 10 volumes because otherwise the show's not going to be that exciting.
That's a big dilemma that's been happening in the Discord too, is that people are so anxious to get ahead, but they want to read with us. So
you know what? We're going to have to give them some extra stuff. And I know we've talked about it before, but I feel like we might as well sort of put that promise out there.
Yeah.
I want us to read some of the spin-off titles that are set within the Invincible
side.
universe. Yeah, some like volume 1s of maybe characters that we haven't met yet, like Tech Jacket or maybe even Brit, so, Capes Incorporated. Some of these characters had been mentioned and stuff. I think we can read them, and I think that we should make them available to some folks in a little bit more of an exclusive club. But we can do that in addition to doing this weekly by weekly. I want to give us a little bit more Invincible universe to read, is what I'm saying. Like, and I think we
feel
can do
that.
that, focus on that, and then still do this every week. So, so look for that soon. We'll be announcing some stuff very shortly. Talking about that exclusive club. It probably rhymes with Schmatreon. So just stay tuned.
It's Claytreon.
Yeah, that's what we'll be doing.
More like Patreon, you know what I mean?
Dude,
Patreon,
I just want to say, I know Augustine and I are like overjoyed that you have finally gotten to this moment. Now I feel like we can talk about
Stratosphere,
how much we love
baby.
this
We're going to
book.
space.
Yeah. You're in it now. You
can't
are
wait.
in it,
God,
Adam.
man.
It's like when cholos jump in new gang members. You've officially been jumped in, homie.
This is
right.
the no
In
turning
it.
back point.
This is
That's
the
right.
no turning
Anyone
back
who
for
life.
reads Invincible and gets to this volume, there is no sane person on Earth or in the stratosphere who could be like, I'm done. I'd be like,
nope.
you're
That's
crazy. I'm gonna beat you over the head with a chancla and a compendium, because you better keep reading this shit.
Exactly.
So good.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Adam. You cannot turn around at this point. This is the point where you're ride or die with us. All the people who are watching, you're ride or die at this point. Adam's ride or die.
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna happen. We're gonna
We're in.
finish.
We're in.
The good thing about this is that there is an end. The comic has
Right.
ended. We do have a finish line. So unfortunately, I have not finished yet. I don't think Hector has finished the last comic episode or issue. Just
Yeah.
the last issue.
Oh, just the
right?
last
Correct. So
issue.
Just
So
the
we will
last
all.
issue.
I read everything up to except for the last issue.
So we will all finish at the same time.
Jesus.
We will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Are you
exciting.
ready for this, Hector?
That's exciting.
Hector, are you really gonna read the last issue with us?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
wow. I feel honored.
It's going to be great. It's going to
such
take
an
us
honor.
another, 23 weeks, but hey, we're doing
It's
it.
worth it. It's worth the
It's
ride,
gonna
'cause
go
we got
by
a lot of
quick
stuff to
though.
cover.
Like we're already in week 3 of this. We're 12 issues in,
Yeah.
and it feels like we just I feel like we've done barely an episode of this show, but this is the third one already.
yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, man.
I'm
It's
very,
good.
very excited. But of course, we want the community's thoughts, opinions, stresses, anger, betrayal. We want to hear all your guys' thoughts in the comments below or on Discord. Jump over to the Discord, link down in the description. Everyone has been going in and just like, dumping out their feelings, and I'm here for it. I love it. It's been such an amazing ride. If you're enjoying the content, of course, consider subscribing. Be on the lookout because we will be launching some fun stuff very, very soon, because we want to read not just the stuff on the inside. We want to do the outside too. Every single part of Invincible, and also there will be other content obviously available on future Schmatreons. You're welcome.
Claytreons, whatever.
Whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.